Hey guys, welcome back. It is day 27 with Judah, and I've started the session with getting him into the round pen and fly spraying him. He can't concentrate if he has flies on him, so I'm taking care of that problem immediately before I start his training. So I put a little pressure on the lead rope and have him take a step forward, and so we are changing directions. That way I can spray into the wind instead of against it. So he's standing here handling all of this like a champ. The next part of this video is me sacking him out with a flag and practicing our inside turns. What's important to mention is that they use flags and bags on sticks to move these horses around, and they are terrified of them. So I wanted to overly use the flag and the bag on a stick to make sure that he is not afraid of these anymore. You can tell he's really not scared of it anymore. I had to reach forward and almost touch him with it to get him to move out. And he's trotting past another bag on a stick on the ground, and he's really not upset about this anymore. But in the beginning, he would crash headfirst into these panels if you brought one of these out. So I give him a break. And so I just wave the flag around and just playing with it. And so now I'm going to pick up the bag on a stick plus the flag, and I'm just going to wave him about and see how he reacts. This is the very first time that I've done this, and he seems to be handling it really well. So now I'm gonna apply the stimulus to the side of his body and behind him. I want him to turn and face me. I don't want him to run off straight forward. So if anything happens behind him, I want him to turn and face whatever is scaring him, which he does, instead of just turning and burning and bolting straight off. So I'm going to test it again and see how he handles it. He's a little scared, but then he turns and faces me. So I'm going to test him again. And he does very well. All right, so this next session, I'm just practicing holding his head, messing with his mouth, messing with the halter, touching his nostrils, just handling his face in general, because he's very protective about his face, and he's very protective about me being on his left side. So I'm practicing also reaching over and pressing on the right side of his jowl to bring his head over to me to the left, which this is very important for haltering and for bridling. So he handles it pretty well, so I just take a step back and reward him, and I'm putting some pressure there to have him yield his hips away from me. Judah does have a tendency to freeze and lock up, so you'll see me yield his hindquarters away several times to make sure he's unlocked during our training sessions. So right now, I'm asking him to take a step towards me to the left with his left front foot, and he does there. And so I release pressure, and then he takes a step with his right and then his left. All right, so this next part of the training session is me doing lead rope desensitizing, and of course all the desensitizing that you see I do on both sides equally. And I'm showing the left side because this is his worst side. And you can see he's a little tense in the beginning, but eventually over time he softens up and relaxes. So now I give him a break. And I move on to desensitizing his front legs. And I have him take a few steps towards me to unlock if he's being stiff or if he's frozen. And he does. He does a good job. And so now I'm going to work on his back legs. So in the beginning you see he's pretty stiff and tense. And he usually scoots or flinches in the beginning, but eventually he softens up and relaxes. So now we've moved on to sending him over obstacles. This is the very first time that he's ever seen pool noodles, ever walked over pool noodles. It's probably the second time he's ever walked over poles, and he's handling this with ease, no problem at all. He looks at them a few times, steps on one, and doesn't really care about it. It is amazing how intelligent these horses are. So I put a little bit of pressure on him because he was getting kind of lazy and didn't want to move out. He wanted to stop and visit with me. And so now we stop and I rub him down with the whip and change directions. Good, he's got a nice bend in his neck. I'm driving him forward, and now we are stepping over the noodles and the poles, traveling to the left, which is his more sensitive side. Now I'm careful not to rush him over the obstacle because if he wants to look at it, I want him to investigate it first and then step over. I don't want him to blaze or rush over it. I want him to think about where his feet are and to take his time. So he does really good with that. Of course, all of these clips are shortened because this whole training session is an hour long at least. And so I rub him down both sides with the whip. And now we move on to brushing. So it shows me brushing the left side of his body. Of course, I brush the right side. You can see that his back left leg is relaxed. I really feel like he's starting to enjoy this brushing. And now I move on to brushing his mane and making sure that he is in position and not tense. So I unlocked his body there. And man, does this boy have some hair. He has really thick draft horse hair that has layers upon layers in it. And so I've been having to brush it every day, brush him every day, which is something I wanted to do anyways, just to build a relationship. But it's possible that we're going to have some haircut time to ease up the burden of that mane during the summer. And it does take quite a while to brush all the way through the layers, because he has like a top layer and an underlayer. It's a lot of hair. And you look at his face, his eyes are kind of relaxed until I change my body position, and then I'm reminding him that I'm going to brush his forelock, which he's uncomfortable with me being directly in front of him. But he figures it out. He is really smart. So I ask him to come back, and he does. And then we continue. So that pretty much concludes the training session for the day. And so I'm going to put up my materials, and then we are going to leave the round pen and go back to his pen. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.